You'll have plenty of bloopers.
Welcome to RevUP and Awaken. This world is certainly a mysterious place. For centuries, we've sought out ways to gain a deeper understanding as to the whys and hows of this reality, how to get to the deep down truth of it all. Instead, we find ourselves lost in a maze of endless rhetoric. Our inner world is where the answers really exist, and becoming reacquainted with that field, that source, is the true goal of our mission. Join us for part 2 of our interview with Nadie, a shamanic healer, intuitive, and medium.
What would you say is something that people can do to perhaps help themselves along to become acquainted with who they really are?
It's that. What I was doing right now, some people call it stimming.
Is that what they call it? Stimming?
Stimming, if you're neurodivergent, which is this big thing that is going around right now where people are realizing they either have autism or ADHD or whatever you call it. A lot of healers, a lot of mystics are neurodivergent, which just means that like you realize everything was a ruse and you just said, this is bullshit, I'm done, I'm out of here. And you left the box, right? So what was I doing right now? I was stimming. I was moving my body, and it was almost like bringing in this information through the play or the allowance of that energy to move. In the exploration of these parts of ourselves, which are dark and they're not, what's the word? I lose words all the time. That's a part of my authenticity. So much going on there. There's no accolades. You don't get rewarded for saying that you're wrong.
Right.
Other than, when you look at what's not working for yourself in the face and you have that self-awareness, well, then that's going to be the tipping point of change and the further creation of a reality that you see for yourself. But it brings me back to courage and shadow work, which we talk a lot about as healers.
And just becoming aware of how you're feeling. I get into art a lot, and there are times when I'm doing something, drawing or painting, all of a sudden a feeling will come to me, and usually it's connected to an image or a flashback from when I was a child. And then I realize, I understand why I feel this way because of how it's connected to that event years ago.
One of the things that comes to the forefront for me is the idea that somewhere along the way we lost the ability to lean on the wisdom of elders. And when beings were living tribally, there were the elders of the tribe who were holders of the wisdom, and there was reverence for those elders, and they had a very pivotal role in the way that the tribe functioned overall. So we're coming out of a time where we don't have access to this wisdom, we don't have access to these elders, and people are hungry, they're dehydrated. It's almost like they're sitting in a desert. And so as soon as the appearance or the idea of someone who holds wisdom is in front of them, it's very enticing, it's very engaging, and so they're drawn in. So we are living in an age where it's very easy for people who call themselves healers to not only gain recognition, but also to hold a field of authority, right?
Yeah.
And there are layers to this because the more research that I do, the more that I realize that cults are very prevalent in the United States. And they're not just spiritual, by the way. And I think this comes from a human need to, one, connect, but two, to be nourished by wisdom. And be nourished by the elders, which unfortunately has been absent. And so I understand why people are finding these spiritual authorities and allowing themselves to be influenced by them.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also this need that people have to feel accepted, because we go through years of, feeling like we're not validated. We're flawed beings. We're constantly being told that. If we go within and we strengthen our inner core and our inner understanding, our higher self, our connection to higher self, then that would allow us to be able to gain the information that we might need at that moment when we feel overwhelmed with things.
One of the foremost needs, one of the most important needs, is connection.
Mm.
And we know this because we're not born into this reality independent. We are very much so dependent on the mother figure. We're dependent on the parental figures, the family, and then the greater community from there. And so all of these things have been poisoned. And it's important to face that reality for what it is. So that urge to gain clarity through a revered, important leader comes from a very real place. But you want to make sure that they're trustworthy. You want to make sure that they are who they say they are. And unfortunately, we're in a time where there is this, I hate to say the word because of where it came from, but this oversaturation where so many people find themselves to be in positions of authority just because, as I said previously, they got there first. And it's layered, it's nuanced, it's a paradox, because we need to be led to go within and find that inner authority. And I think that we're led there through the example of beings who do that for themselves. So you want to have those examples of people who are empowered and sovereign, who have really great boundaries but are also heart-centered, and they're active in the community in the way that they uniquely present their medicine, whatever that may be, whether they're a gardener or they're a chef or a teacher, right? It doesn't have to be a being who identifies as a healer. But what you want to find is that in the energy field, these are beings who are very powerful in that they are sovereign, they know who they are, and they act as a creator in their reality. And so I think that when it comes to the bypassing and all that stuff, you might find that in the spiritual community, but I think that there are these unassuming leaders who are hiding in the day-to-day reality, who are really showing the way as a way shower, and you might not, you will be surprised who these people are, because I don't think that leadership is something that you seek. I think it's something that is bestowed upon you when you come here, because you do hold a powerful field of knowing and saying, you know what, I'm important and you're important too, and I'm going to act as if.
It's remembering who you are. Yeah. So just as as an aside, what do you see for the future as in terms of how things might change due to what they call the ascension process that we're going through? Because obviously there is something that's expanding. People are given a word for it. And it's quite obvious that it is, because systems are falling.
Collapse, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you see in terms of what might actually be on the horizon?
Well, in the very immediate future, there will be chaos, and unfortunately, unavoidable chaos. And so, how do you navigate the chaos? You want to have a very strong connection to your own intuition, your own inner authority, and let that lean on your guidance, lead on your ritual. Going forward, the birthing process will look like a lot more people coming back to that foremost human need, which is community. It's connection. And so I believe that we will be meeting a lot of our needs in community, in collaborative efforts, so more tribal living, if you want to call it that. We can create a new name for it, like who cares? But it's going to go back to a more communal model where people will become specialized in the needs that the tribe has or the community has, and they will come together and meet the needs as a collective. Will we face some resistance to that? Probably. To go from this chaos, which feels a lot like hell on earth, to utopia would probably shock the hell out of the system. And it's just not going to look that way. It's going to be more gradual. Know that there are beings who are aligned with you, with your unique soul's essence and blueprint, who are waiting to connect with you and build the thing that you're supposed to build, whatever that looks like. For some reason, Spirit's showing me a windmill. So, I mean, you know, it comes back to the specialization of what are the basic needs. And so windmill will serve the purpose of creating power. And so we really will have these specializations. And if you're a healer, you'll probably still be a healer. Whether you specialize in herbalism or you keep your your healing modality that you already have. And the return of the elders and the wise ones who hold the story, right? Because we are uniquely witnessing a collapse. And so it's very, very important to hold on to that story and to share it with the generations coming.
Right, yeah.
And that's what the indigenous people do. They share these stories because these cycles are cyclical. I know that's, me saying the same thing twice. However, holding on to that story and sharing the story will hopefully one day lead us to learning from the mistakes of the past and creating a system which is supportive to the all.
Yeah, I think what, when they talk about the 5D, I think what they're probably trying to envision is a world so unlike the one that we're in right now, and that we've been dealing with for centuries, but one that is totally different from what we're dealing with now. We don't have to deal with having to work for a living and stressing ourselves out and having to give up on our passions, and those will be the things that we follow, and we'll have the burden taken off of us. So I think that once we get ourselves, get the foundation going and move on through the years, I think that those things, those qualities will start to be created and be embedded into the new society.
The new earth is built by the self-aware, right? That has to be a foundation before we create anything. Because if we are not self-aware, all we do is regurgitate and recreate what we already have. Unfortunately, I don't know how to say this other than bluntly, there are a lot of people, there's something called a false light that is going and infiltrating the spiritual field. False light is a field where it's almost like the God that is of the false light is a savior who comes and makes everything okay, and you don't have to do anything. You're passive and it just happens. You blink your eyes and abracadabra, you're in utopia. That's not how it happens, right?
Yeah.
We need the self-awareness. We need beings who are doing inner work to do the work, to help educate, and to continue to spread and expand the consciousness. It's almost as if when I think about people who speak on the new earth, and for some reason Spirit's telling me inner earth, those two things might not be separate at all. When we think about it, it's almost as if for some reason there is this idea that instantaneously you will wake up in a new world.
Yeah, I know, I've heard that, yeah.
And you may, with a caveat, I feel like we will have glimpses where we're uninhibited, we are expressing the essence of our soul song, is the best way I can describe it. So you're being totally authentic, you're being yourself, you're being loving, and your soul essence is being projected forward, and it's safe to do so. And you're having exchanges that are celebrated and they're positive. You're going to experience that, and then you're going to walk into the matrix again, because it's still in existence. There are so many people upholding that field of consciousness that for a while there will be this in-between.
Oh, sure.
However, connecting with the beings who support the field of that authentic soul essence, who can be a safe container for that to exist, that's how you create the new earth, right? You find that safe container to express, to project, to emanate, and you start existing there. It's going to start in hubs and hopefully expand from there.
Don't forget to visit healingwithnadie.com to peruse her services. Recognizing your own true voice creates a clearer connection between you and that divine source. As Greg Braden recently stated, divinity is our ability to transcend perceived human limitations. Thanks for taking the time to listen and reflect. Let us all transcend our personal limitations, and we will see you soon here on RevUP Awaken.